Paul Metsa's Wall of Power TV is brought to you in part by Grey Wolf Lodge, your home away from home in the North Woods. And Norway Point, your year-round getaway on Pelican Lake.
But also, there were other things that attracted me to the folk music. One of which is that here you've got something that has survived, even though they don't know who wrote it, mainly because it interests people and has interested people for quite some time. So my reasoning was that these songs then had stuff that was real pertinent to what goes on in this culture.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is a Metsamerica Wall of Power TV special. It is February 11th, 2022. We are in Palmer's Bar, one of the oldest bars in the Twin Cities on Cedar Avenue. This is a labor of love interview today with my friend and my hero, Spider John Koerner. And then let's talk about your influence on a young Bonnie Raitt. One of her first tunes that she recorded with Willie and the Bees and Dave Ray studio, I believe, was Am I Blue? It's Koerner original.
I Ain't Blue is the name of it.
Okay.
Yeah. I met her out in the Village and in Cambridge before she got to be what she became. And we became friends back then. And I think, I might have talked to her about recording with Dave, and that wound up happening. And we still talk to each other on the phone. When she comes to town, we get together. She's a real sweetheart.
Yeah. And she's really good.
Yeah, she is good. Good slide player.
Oh, phenomenal.
I Ain't Blue was written in a hotel in Philadelphia. It was one of the quickest songs I ever wrote. It took about, a couple of days. It was one of those things that comes in a flash.
Well, it's a classic.
Well, I don't think it's quite classic. It's got a couple of little weak points in it.
That's why it's classic.
Bonnie seemed to really pick up on us, and she heard us then in Boston a few times too, because she was going to Radcliffe there. And then when she got her record deal with Warner Brothers, she talked to John. That was shortly after we quit playing together, about him and I producing it, because she liked our record a lot. And he told her that was more my bag than his, and she called me up and I said I would love to produce it.
Well, Willie knew that I was starting up this recording studio due to Jane's help, Sylvia's aunt. And so we got together on it. I got the equipment together. Bonnie's brother, Steve Raitt, came out and helped set the thing up.
Basically, it was his studio, and him and Sylvia were the engineers, and I was the producer. We found a nice spot to do it in out at Lake Minnetonka, and most of my band, which I had the Bees together by then, played on it, and some other people, some blues people and stuff.
Got Buddy Guy, Junior Wells, blah, 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 all showing up. And we just rented a joint and did it. It was one of those youthful vigor deals where everything just fell into place and we just did it. I made that record in a month, Cost about $6,000, $7,000 to make that recording. Best record she ever made, too. I'll tell you that, Bonnie, to your face. Best record you ever made, baby.
Let's talk about a few other great musicians that you hung with over the years, and you've hung with a lot. But let's talk about Dave Van Ronk for a bit.
Yeah, he called himself the mayor of Greenwich Village.
Yeah.
And I don't remember how much hanging out there was, but we crossed paths continuously and played some jobs together. Yeah. Interesting guy, very growly. He knows how to be very growly.
Now, you used to do a thing, John Koerner. What was your thing with the space thing you used to do. It was like kind of a holiday show.
Yeah.
You'd wear a hat, kind of upside down umbrella, and you talk about outer space. What was that all about?
Yeah, Spider John Space Tavern.
Mm-hmm.
The first one was done over in the People's Center here, which, as far as I'm concerned, was the best. Michael Rivard filmed it, and unfortunately that can't be found anymore. But yeah, it had 3 piano players. I think it was John Beach and Willie and Tommy Ray.
Okay.
You know, and all kinds of other stuff happening, including a Van de Graaff machine. You know what those are?
I've heard of them. What
Those
are
things
they?
with it got a ball on the top, and you put your hand on it, and your hair.
Oh yeah, right.
And I had a meteorite that people could look at, and all that.
Was that kind of from back to your interest in aeronautics?
No. Okay, when I was living in Denmark, 3 or 4 years, I had a job in on the island of Fyn, where Hans Christian Andersen lived for part of his
Really?
young life. Yeah. And at that time, you had to take a ferry. You get on the train gets on the ferry, and then the train gets off and takes you to the town of Odense. Anyway, I was coming back from that job. I had a little alcohol in me, and I had some smoke with me. And it was about 3 o'clock in the morning. I went topside, nobody else up there, and the only sound was the engines of the boat, and you could see stars all the way down to the horizon, dead clear. And then I had this revelation. It's something that's rather obvious, but to me, all of a sudden it was a revelation. I realized, geez, you know, there's stars below the horizon too, and for that matter, underneath you and all around. You know, it just struck me that you put me out in space.
Right.
And that eventually turned me into an amateur astronomer.
Wow.
Slowly. And
So do you have a telescope?
do I?
Yeah.
I got so many telescopes.
Really?
Yeah.
Good for you.
Including, I built one back in around 1980.
You built a telescope.
Yeah, and that's a whole other story itself.
It sounds like a song to me. Spider John builds a telescope.
Koerner got interested in astronomy, built his own telescope, and staged several astronomic events.
In general, the idea with the Space Tavern productions is to give people a little bit of the feel of how interesting the universe, the observable physical universe, can be. We have a tendency to think of the Earth as being the place where we are, and the stars and the sun and the moon as being some other place. And you have to realize that's where the Earth is where those other things are. And that it's all sort of sailing through space.
In 1980, there was a 3-part article in Astronomy magazine about how to build a telescope. The telescope that you're going to build was figured out by a guy named John Dobson, who was one of the most amazing people I've ever heard about. He's started the San Francisco Sidewalk Astronomers. Anyway, the tube of the telescope is sonotube. Sonotube is those, they're heavy cardboard tubes that usually are used for pouring cement pillars. And well, it was all funky but very efficient, and it's the kind of thing anybody could build. I didn't do the optics, I didn't grind the lenses or anything, but you get that, and the rest of it you put together with stuff you can get down at the hardware store.
Wow.
Yeah, I still got it at home.
So how far in outer space can you see with that?
Well, it depends on what you're looking at, of course. You can, one of the nice things to look at, if you got a decent-sized telescope is there's many. It's called the Virgo cluster. It's a cluster of galaxies, and you can just cruise around and see one after another.
Wow.
I don't know how far away they are, but and after I got my telescope together, I was going out in the country, actually to Bacon. What's Bacon's first name?
Francis.
No, no, the guy around here. Jeez. Anyway, he was a West Banker. Anyway, his farm.
Okay.
And I got 20 minutes out of town and I realized I forgot the damn mirror. So I went back and got it. We set it up, went from dusk to dawn. And I was seeing all those things for the first time that I'd only seen in pictures in the magazine.
Wow.
Yeah.
I want to give you credit, John. Now, what kind of books and things have you read over the years? What are your interests in terms of literature?
Not much.
Okay.
You know, really, nothing particular I remember.
You know, there was somebody posted a thing. There's a great Spider John Facebook page about a year ago. Might have been one of your kids. Posted something about you came up at the Cedar Theater, and there was this word that you described modern politics.
Don't remember.
Okay.
One thing I would like to add into all of this, though, is another day when something happened. I was living just over here, and I woke up in the morning and I thought, I got to have a boat. Everybody's got a boat. So I went down here to a Severin's bookstore and said, you got any books on how to build boats? And they said, not really, except this one. And it was how to build and use an authentic American John boat. And it was written, it was a very charming book, but you can build these things out of,
It was called a John boat?
Yeah.
Well, that's perfect.
You can build these things out of Home Depot stuff.
Okay.
And they were, actually I have I don't know where I got it, but I have a postcard which got a picture of it, of the Mississippi, and on one bank there's a train tracks, and down on the water in some vegetation is a John boat that looks exactly like what I built.
Really?
Yeah. This is 2013.
Wow.
I mean 1913.
Wow.
Yeah. So they're a thing. They're part of American history. Is when they first started coming over here. Of course, they needed boats.
Sure.
They needed lots of boats, and it was a bit of a struggle for a while until sawmills started showing up, and you could get planks.
Huh.
And that's what they built them, flat-bottom boats that eventually got very sophisticated in their own way. And they would, that's for oystering and all that stuff out on the coast, and all manner of stuff.
So do you throw it on your trailer and go boating?
Well, I used to be able to muscle it up on top of the car,
Well,
which I can't now.
We'll hire a couple of
Yeah.
young folk to do it. We'll go, because I love to fish, we'll have to do that together.
I'm going to play a song here. It's a Woody Guthrie song, if I've got my facts straight, and I have modified it slightly, which I know for a fact. There's more pretty women than one. Yeah, there's more pretty women than one. Every town that I rambled around, well, there's more pretty women than one. Look down that railroad line, see the train roll by. The train rolled by with the woman I love, yes, and I hang my head and cry. There's more pretty women than one. Hey, town that I ramble round, but there's more pretty women than one. I look out across the sea, see the breakers swell. How many a love had been washed away, no human tongue can tell. And there's more pretty women than one. Hey, hey, yeah. Every town that I ramble round, there's more pretty women than one. Yes, and I got a woman on my mind. I don't even know her name. I've never been to her place or ever seen her face. Yes, and I love her just the same. There's more pretty women than one. Hey, hey, yeah. Every town that I ramble round, but there's more pretty women than one.
Let's run a few, I don't want to take your whole day here, and I hope we can do this again because you're a wealth of information and such a cool guy. But let's go back to Dinkytown. You and I were lucky enough to be good friends with Dave Morton.
Sure.
And Dave Morton, in Robert Shelton's book, No Direction Home, probably one of the best biographies of Bob Dylan, said, when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. And it was specifically about Dave Morton's influence on Bob Dylan.
Okay.
And according to Dave, and I spent a lot of time with him, his farm in northern Minnesota was only a mile from the Metsa homestead. And we met on a cement pour in 1976, hung out a lot, played together a lot. And he said, he told Dylan after hearing the young Bob at the Skull, he goes, yeah, I like your folk and blues. You should consider writing some songs yourself. That's from Dave's mouth. If that's true, we know how that worked out. But talk about that.
Some of you people have been smoking my dope.
That was a big tune on Heavy Guns.
Yeah.
Classic song. What about Dave in particular in that beatnik scene in Dinkytown back in the late 50s, early 60s? I mean, it was as beatnik got, right?
Yeah, well, I'm not remembering any specific stuff from that. I'm sorry to say. Sometimes when people ask me about the past, I say my memory of the past is somewhat vague, except for the embarrassing things.
Right. Well, let's talk a little bit about, because it was a big deal where all you musicians kept going and paying your rent, although it wasn't much at the time, was these rent parties.
Yes.
Now, didn't you
Red Nelson.
Yeah. So didn't Koerner and Glover do Rent Party Rag, or was that on Run and Jump and Stand It Still? Or was that somebody else? Speaking of bad memories.
No, that's no, that's right. It might have been on the first record.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they had the rent part. Red Nelson always had us, and after you get down to the bar, you go to his after bar times, whatever.
Yeah, closing time.
Get together, right? And sometimes he, in order to try and make the rent. This is an old thing from way back. The rent parties, but he'd do that. I should tell you another story.
Please do.
Red used to have a
Tell me every story you got, John. I'm all ears.
Red used to have a building over here with a number of apartments in it, and I had one of the, well, it was basically a room, but one night I was coming home from the bar, and there was a whorehouse next to the, And I walked past the whorehouse and I heard a commotion going on there. I didn't know what that was. I was glad I wasn't there. And I go up to the front door of this place, big front door, put in the key, open the door, look up the stairs, and I'm facing many guns.
Wow.
And Red leaps down the stairs and says, "Get out of the way," you know. It turns out there had been a couple of guys up there who were not welcome and who had weapons.
Wow.
And they got marched out at gunpoint. And when they got to the outside of the door closed and somebody fired off. But anyway, there were holes I didn't notice this, but holes in the door.
Wow.
And they were still ready for them to, you know. I was very lucky that I didn't get shot at.
It had two poles. One of them was on Seven Corners and the other was in Dinkytown itself, where Mel McCosh and all those people lived, the bookseller. And they would have big parties, and they were more the intellectuals. And on Seven Corners were more the hardcore drunks. They just sort of liked to hang out, and you know, we didn't have any academic assumptions. We didn't pretend to know anything. We just drank and listened to the music. We were called beatniks because we didn't care. We just sort of laid back, non-participants, smoked some weed, drank some beer, drank some wine, tried to live forever and get some raise.
Yeah, late last night I was coming home. I opened the door and wanted to face the gun. You know the boy shooting it up last night. Somebody ran right out the door crying, "Lord, don't shoot me no more." And the boy shooting it up last night. Not long gone the police car.
The boys who were shooting it out last night comes from a really, sort of a very tough situation. John was renting from me when I had my coffee house, The Scholar. Well, one night John's coming home from the 400 bar, you know, or it was the Mixers then, coming home from the Mixers, and he's got his guitar and about half a load on, and it's Saturday night, and he comes by the building, and there's people across the street hiding behind my old Plymouth, shooting at the building. And he looks at the building where he lives, and there are people in the building shooting at the people in the street. And he said, "What's this?" and it turned into quite a gunfight.
When I talked to Red Nelson several years ago, adore that guy, would love to see him again soon. He talked when you had these rent parties, people had to put their guns and their knives in like a box before they went in.
Well, that may be.
And I said, I had no idea when you think beatniks and then turn into hippies, you just don't think there's guns and knives involved. So yeah, we just put the guns. And,
yeah.
You know.
No, there was a guy at the front door. I can't remember his name. Big, tall guy. He used to take care of that kind of business.
Wow. Well, let's just touch on a couple other things. What I'd like to know: when did the excuse me? When did the folk scene move from Dinkytown to the West Bank?
It was probably gradual, in a way, but Dinkytown started getting taken over by corporate, you know, which you can see now.
Right.
It's nothing like it used to be. And so they came over here where the bars were, and you know, there's bars all up and down.
Yeah.
And there's places to play. And that's kind of just what happened. And the so-called hippie era happened over here, and which was probably the best time, in a way. It was a lot of fun stuff going on.
John, if you don't mind me asking, you're 82 now, right? 83 years old.
Yeah. Not everybody thought I was going to make it this far.
Well, we're so glad you did. Now, you know, like I said earlier, we've lost Dave Ray, Bill Hinckley, Willie Murphy, Tony Glover. You're really, in a way, one of the last men standing. I don't want to put too much pressure on you.
Yeah.
But what can, you know, just kind of sum up how magic it was, and I'm sure it wasn't all roses, but to work with all those guys, because you played with every one of them, and you hung out with all of them.
Sure. Yeah, no, it was definitely magical in a way. You know, working with Dave and Tony was a really interesting thing all around. The thing with Willie was, like I say, was really interesting too. And they're all gone, and I'm the only one who didn't quit drinking.
Cheers to that, John Koerner.
At the 1982 and 83 Minnesota Music Awards, Koerner, Ray, and Glover were named Best Folk Group. In 1985, Bonnie Raitt presented the Hall of Fame Award.
All right, some friends of mine.
Actually, I would like to say quickly 3 things. One is, we all, of course, appreciate that the music that we've made has been appreciated by other folks. Second, we never would have become what we became if we hadn't been hanging around the Twin Cities, especially over in the bohemian sections there of Dinkytown and West Bank. And thirdly, if anybody knows where some 2-bit musicians like ourselves can get some work, just leave a message at the 400 bar down Cedar and Riverside.
All right. Couldn't have said it any better myself. Thank you.
It's nice to get recognition for doing something before you die.
I want to mention one thing.
Yeah, please
here.
do. Go ahead. What do you want to say?
Recently, I've been playing, and there's a couple of guys out in Boston, fiddle player and a bass player, who I've been played with. We've played all around the country, and also in England and Ireland together. And that was, at the end of my so-called career, the only time that I really was enjoying playing. These guys we were good friends, we enjoyed each other, and it certainly really made a nice show.
Do you miss playing?
Not now, no.
Okay.
I quit playing because my hands stopped doing what they were supposed to. And not too long after that, I thought it was just like, yeah, it was time.
Yeah. So probably the last time I saw you played was at Tony Glover's memorial.
That could be, yeah.
Well, John, I want to thank you for years and years and years and years and years of great music. It's such an honor to be your friend. You are, now you're kind of the unofficial mayor of the West Bank that Willie's gone. And we want to also thank Palmer's Bar and Willie the bartender for hosting us, and the great new owner, Tony Zaccardi, who we love dearly. One more question, just because people out there in the world want to know. So, did it blow your mind how Big Dylan finally blew up from those early days on Dinkytown? Did you have any idea that was going to happen?
No, we didn't. Before he left, none of us did. How could you?
Yeah.
He could write songs that are just, they do blow your mind, how good they are and how they get to the point. Very interesting.
Well, you had a little bit to do with that, John Koerner. What would you tell people to listen to? Just starting out, 18-year-old going to the University of Minnesota, fall of 2022. Here are the 2, 3, or 4 musicians or types of music you should listen to. What would you suggest, Spider John Koerner?
I wouldn't do that.
Okay.
I'd let them, they're on their own. But they, obviously they just check stuff out.
Yeah. Well, that's fair enough. Now, at 83, besides keeping drinking, and I'm going to use that with my
Not like I
girlfriend.
used to, by the way.
No, none of us do. None of us can. But what is the secret to a healthy life? What's Spider John's secret? What keeps you alive, fresh, and healthy?
I have no idea.
Okay, that's close
enough.
enough.
Just chug along, and somehow I got this far.
Spider John Koerner, God bless you, man. This has been beautiful.
Thank you.
Once again, thanks to Willie, thanks to Palmer's, thanks to Andy Watson, my producer. We're going to have some great still photos by Ruben Lantz. This has been a labor of love. This is Paul Metsa signing off. And stick around. We'll be around next week. We'll save you a seat.